So let's get started with the issue. It's an interesting experience. You get to enjoy it right now when you watch Channels Television, as we're live now on Facebook. Well, we follow the development in Kogi State, the issue in the National Assembly and in the PDP. But let's begin now with the matter in Kogi State. 3 times starting from the tribunal up onto the appeal court and now at the Supreme Court. Governor Yahya Bello is now free from any legal tussle, at least for now. The legal tussle, of course, hanging over the election which produced him as the #1 citizen of the North Central State. The case may be unique in several ways. Now, how he emerged as APC candidate, there was a supplementary election which he partook in, and of course, when he emerged victorious at the tribunal, at the appeal court, and again in the Supreme Court. So these are some of the reactions of the lawyers involved in the case.
We are grateful to God for a very fantastic judgment, and it really goes to develop more of our jurisprudence on a very knotty issue that was really worrisome to many people in Nigeria. And I think the judgment is fantastic. We await their reasons, but the bottom line is that the appeals all lack merit, and that affirms the concurrent findings of the trial tribunal and the Court of Appeal, and that this is the final court.
In the words of Shakespeare, all is well that ends well. This matter has come to an end, and we are waiting for their reasons on the 30th of September.
Those are some of the lawyers involved in that case. Of course, they're not two in that case. The Labour Party candidate was involved, the PDP, former Governor Idris Wada, and Mr. James Falike, the running mates to the late Prince Abubakar Audu. All were involved challenging the victory of Governor Yahya Bello. Well, of course, the Supreme Court today affirmed the election of Yahya Bello as the governor of Kogi State. The 7-man panel headed by Justice Sylvester Onwata affirmed his victory after listening to the closing statements of all the council. Let's take a look at how this journey began from the day the election held, starting with November 21st, 2015, when the election held substantively, and the INEC declared the election inconclusive the following day. On the 22nd of November, the APC candidate Prince Abubakar Audu died, and on the 27th of November 2015, APC picked Mr. Yahya Bello as its candidate as a replacement for the late Audu for the supplementary election. A lot of controversies were generated from that, and in December, precisely on the 5th, the INEC conducted a supplementary election. And on the 6th of December 2015, INEC declared Mr. Bello as the winner in the supplementary election. And the 6th of June in 2016, the election tribunal upheld Yahya Bello's election. It went on to the appeal court in August. It also emerged victorious, and a month after, at the Supreme Court, ultimately the winner. Well, that's the final court in this matter. Well, let's get some perspectives into this matter. You remember what happened when Prince Abubakar Audu died. A lot of people were asking questions as to the lacuna in the law, as it was not provided at that time specifically what should be done and the way to go at that time. So a lot of people were asking the question, what will INEC do? What will the APC do? And one of the platforms in which Mr. James Falike went into court to say Mr. Yahya Bello is not a true candidate of the APC. I guess all that has been settled and rested now. Mr. Malachi Ogumadu joins us now, a legal practitioner, a senior legal practitioner, joins us in the studio. Many thanks for coming on the program.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
How does it come to you? First and foremost, Mr. Yahya Bello triumphed 3 times in all of the cases, tribunal, appeal court. If you look at the cases involving governorship tussle, it has not been this smooth, but for him, despite all of the hurdles in law, he still emerged victorious.
Well, I think the starting point is to appreciate that this was a contest that moved from the polling booth and then ended in the court. And whether we like it or not, it has to end one way or the other. Today, the apex court in the land, which is the Supreme Court of Nigeria, has given a verdict and reserved its rulings. That puts paid to the legal contestation, indeed the whole contest as it were, because after now you cannot appeal to any other court. But I would imagine that there is an overwhelming responsibility to try to strike a balance in terms of uniting the people of Kogi State, because from the entire trajectory of what happened, you could see that it was a state that was divided.
A lot of people, you were talking about the issue of what needs to be done now in Kogi State to calm the nerves, because it was a real tussle in real sense of it.
Foster some unity that will enable the government itself to deliver on a promise. But I was making the point that the attitude of the Supreme Court usually, which is standard practice, is to ensure that the concurrent finding of facts by the lower courts, particularly with respect to facts, are not distorted. And I think that much of that played out in this particular case, because quite frankly, it's a divided opinion in the legal community. There are those who believe that a lot happened, particularly when you look at this whole situation from the standpoint of the fact that such a situation was not provided for under the law, either under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or under the Electoral Act. The Constitution and the Electoral Act envisage a situation in which there is the issue of death before the election or after the election, but not during the election, which was the case here.
Especially when the results has not been finalized or announced, or the winner has not been announced.
Has not been announced officially.
But Mr. Gumado, with what we have now, though the Supreme Court said it will give reasons for its judgment on the 30th of September, but as it stands now, if the Supreme Court gives us a reason, in the meantime, that will stand to fill the vacuum that is in the law, isn't it?
That would have been, that is the expectation. That is precisely what the society desires and needs. But the issue is still a question, whether it will indeed fill the lacuna. Because that lacuna indeed exists. And except there could be an amendment to the Electoral Act, as it was in the case of Amechi, that lacuna will continue to be there and taken advantage of by any other person who sees it and is able to cash in on it.
So perhaps an amendment to the Electoral Act will help out.
Like I did say, there is a clear situation for instances in which the death occurred before the election and after the election, but not during the election.
But again, let's look at this case. Mr. Bello was victorious in the tribunal, had the appeal court and the Supreme Court. In the last few years, we've not seen this kind of trend where someone will. We saw in 2015 where a lot of the cases, either someone won at the tribunal and failed to win at the appeals court. It's not been this smooth.
This is precisely why the legal community is relatively charged now. We're all eagerly waiting to see and hear the reasoning. Indeed, it is at that point that a detailed evaluation of what happened can be taken, whether in terms of commending or in terms of criticizing the judgment of the Supreme Court, which is permissible.
But the Supreme Court has been a bit conservative, yes, if you look at it. Hardly will you see the Supreme Court in the last few years or so throw out a governor, a sitting governor, after a long legal tussle.
No.
It looks like the Supreme Court, after all, will just say, look, it appears it will cost too much to displace a sitting governor.
That is not peculiar to our clients,
okay,
or jurisdiction. The role of the Supreme Court, too, nudges towards the stability of the society. And it is not new. It is not peculiar. It is not new. If you recall the Second Republic, the case of UPN and MPN, it's virtually the same thing. Where up to today, quite a number of us who were maybe secondary school pupils then cannot clearly understand what that 12 to 3rd means. The Supreme Court looks at a lot of issues, well, amongst which is the law, but also has the responsibility to galvanize enough reasoning to support the stability of the society. That is not to say that what the judgment or the verdict have been overreaching. We're only waiting to see the black and white thought process that went into this for us to be able to effectively and adequately respond to what has just happened. But I think that by far more than the immediate response, which is quite an immediate reaction, is to appeal to the people of Kogi State that there must be an end to politics. Mr. Faleke himself should be commended because to a large extent it takes some degree of conviction. Don't forget at a point he was even offered the opportunity as the deputy governor, which he elected. Those are marks of principle. He should be commended because safe and until he went through the entire hall, we probably will not have this last position of the law. And mark you, I am making it with some caveat to say that it is when we see the full judgment, particularly the reasoning, that we'll know whether it has served us well or not.